Okay, so we're going to analyse this piece of music, and analysis is really about just looking a little bit more detail so that we can see what's happening. So if we look at the melody at the top, we can see there's lots of dots and lines and things like that, and it could be that you don't understand or don't feel confident of what all that means. So in the centre of the screen, you've got a rectangle box. And within that, there's a little bit of help, because the first thing that we're going to do from our analysis checklist is pitch. The pitch is all about how high or low the notes are. So I'm going to change my pen colour so that it's kind of a blue colour. And in fact, I'm going to change my highlighter to be that colour as well, just so I can show you things. And first of all, let's have a look at how we can see pitch on the musical stave. The stave is the 5 lines that you can see at the top there. So if we first of all think about whether a dot might be on a line or in a space. Now when it's on a line, like you can see there where I've just highlighted, what I actually mean on a line means that the line's passing through the middle of the dot. And you may well have heard this before: every good boy deserves football. Is the notes on the lines from bottom to top of the stave. So the one on the bottom is E for every, then G for good, B for boy, D for deserves, and F for football. Every good boy deserves football. In that way, we can then remember where they fall. So E is here, that's on the second line up, that's G, that's B, that's D, and that's F. Remembering that rhyme will help us to find those notes quickly. Now, if a note is not on a line, it's in a space, so in other words, it has lines either side of it. These are the notes in spaces, and very helpfully from bottom to top, they spell the word face. So let's find these here. There's F, A, C, E. Very importantly, we always go from the bottom to the top when we're using these rhymes to remember. But you'll notice I've also got some other notes that I've drawn on at the right-hand end, the left-hand end of the row in the middle of the screen. And that's because, of course, we've got the 9 notes that are in the spaces or on the lines, but of course we have notes that go much higher or much lower. So we need to have some other rules. And the first rule to think of is that when we move up or down by step, then we always have this pattern: line, space, line, space. So these notes are always line, space, line, space, line, space, all the way as we go up or down. Now, as we get to the top, this one here is in a space. Even though it's not got a line over the top of it, it's still in a space. And if we think about our alphabet, is A, B, C, D, E, F. So naturally, the next note is G. And there it is. Now, if I wanted to go one note higher than G, remember in our musical alphabet, we only use the letters A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then the next note is going to be the first one again. So that's why here we go back to A. And we've run out of lines at the top, so we just draw ourselves another one, and that's called a ledger line. And you can draw as many ledger lines as you like. All you have to remember, though, is the more that you draw, the harder it becomes to read. And for that reason, we use different clefs in music, some for high-pitch instruments, some for low-pitch instruments. And the instrument that's we're looking at here has a relatively high pitch, and therefore these notes are in the treble clef, and this is a treble clef here to show us that it's in that pitch range. Just in the same way that we can add these ledger lines on the top, so that's a B there, and that's a C, that's got 2 ledger lines. We can also go in the other direction. And to be able to understand this and get this right, you've got to be able to do your alphabet backwards. So this note here, which is the one below E, if you do your alphabet A, B, C, D, E, D is the note that we get to before E, and then C before D, B before C, A before B, and if I went one lower, of course it would be G, because always the musical note that's just below A is a G. Okay, so that's pitch. And the first challenge that we've got that I'd like you to do is to go through and to analyse the pitch. Now, in the first note that we've got there, it's on the middle line. So here we go, that's the note on the middle line. So you'd say, well, it's going to be a B. So we'll write a B underneath, a capital B. But it's got a little symbol just before it that tells me that it's actually a B flat. Now, every other B at that pitch in that bar will also be a B flat rather than a B. And when we come to play it, you'll see what the difference is between a B and a B flat. The only change to that is if I draw on the right-hand side of the screen, if you ever see this symbol, that's a natural symbol. So if something's been made into a flat, then if you wanted to play another B later in the bar that you didn't want to be a B flat, you'd draw that in front of the note and that would be a B natural again. It kind of normalises or naturalises the note again. Okay, let's get on to the next one. This is going to take a little bit of time because we've not done this before. So that's the next one because the dot's on the top line and that's an F. So we'll write F underneath. And I'm being very careful to write the pitch, the note name of the pitch directly underneath because it'll help me later on. Okay, the next one's in a space. It's in the third space up, which is that one. So that's C. And then we've got the one that's just above the top line, in the space above the top line. There we go, that's G. Okay, now we've got two shorter notes, so just right at the end of this bar. The first one is exactly the same. The dot is in the same space as the previous note, so that's another G. And then it goes one up. What we check down here, one up from G is A. So write our G, A. And the next note at the beginning of the next bar, so after we've had the bar line, it looks a little bit like this, but it's got a flat symbol in front of it, so it must be a B flat. The next one here is the same, because the dot hasn't gone up or down, so that's another B flat. And then as we carry on, we've got an A, an F, and a G. And the more you do this, the quicker that you'll get as you go along. Now, I should have said this before. These symbols at the start, the reason that doesn't have a dot on it is because it's a rest, so it's like a gap, which is more important to us when we're thinking about rhythm. Okay, so we'll come back to that. We'll just go through here. B flat, A, F. Now we've got something we've never had before, and that's a symbol like this, and that's a sharp sign. So the other one was a flat sign. Basically, if you have a piano like this, and this is C, and this is D, this black key in between, if you've gone in this direction, the black key is C sharp, but it's also got another name, because if you go in this direction from the D, it's D flat. So that's how to find out which notes are the black keys in that way. Okay, so we've got this hashtag sign in front of the F here. Now it's not a hashtag, not like a tweet or whatever. It is F sharp. F sharp, ever so slightly higher pitch than F. Then we'll continue. We've got D. We've got to be careful here. G, A. And the reason we have to be careful is because that last note of the bar isn't a B. And it isn't a B because it's still B flat from where this was here. There's no natural sign. There we go. Okay, into the final bar of the melody. Same note as we started on, B flat. And then we've got C, D, D, E, D, and then it's very, very little. The last note is a C sharp. Okay, so there we go. We've gone through and we've analysed pitch. So we can tick that off on the checklist. The next thing we're going to do is analyse rhythm. And rhythm's all about understanding the pattern that the music fits in. So I'm actually going to, even though rhythm's orange, I'm going to change my pen colour to black because I'm going to use these boxes, these orange boxes underneath. Now, each of our bars is split up into 4 crotchet beats. So if you to just count 4 crotchet beats in a bar, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason I wouldn't do that when I was analysing this rhythm is because there is a more complicated rhythm, because I've got lots of shorter note values. So I need to be thinking about my 4 crotchet beats in a bar. But I've also drawn you a table above, so you can see how that relates to having 8 quavers in a bar. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or the one that we're going to use, the one at the top, which is where you have 16 semi-quaver beats in a bar. So the music's not any faster, but it's helpful to have this subdivision. In other words, to divide each of those beats into the 4 semi-quavers in a group. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. So if we have a look at the beginning, what we said to begin with is that, in fact, I'm just going to change my highlighter to orange. So you can see that is a quaver rest. So a quaver is like one of these boxes, or 2 of these boxes. You can see how those 2 lines I've just drawn at the bottom are the same length. They are the same. They represent the same thing. I could do it underneath here, and it's the first half of the first beat. So we don't want to make a sound in that time because it's a rest. So I'll go back to my black pen. I'm not going to put any crosses in these orange boxes. However, the next one here, that is where the first note, that's where that B flat happens. And that B flat is a quaver. And so if I've drawn a quaver down here, that is half a beat long. And that's a quaver beat. Okay, so it lasts for, that quaver beat, if I drew it here, it lasts for one of those boxes, or in the same way as we talked about before, a quaver lasts for 2 of those boxes. Now the F, the next one, will start here in the sound here, but the F is a crotchet. So that is a 1 beat note. And the crotchet, if I was to draw it here, lasts for the whole of 1 beat, or it lasts for 2 half beats, or it lasts for 4 quarter beats. So you can start to see how the rhythm fits together. Okay, let's do the next one. So the C is a half beat note. Oops. So it lasts for 2 of those. The G is a 1 beat note. So it lasts for 4 of those. And then the G and the A that are at the end, they are quarter beat. They are semi-quavers. So that's on 15 and 16. So if I was to count the 1 to 16 and tap on the table when to play that rhythm, it would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you can see that each of the parts of the beat is equal or even, and we can create this pattern by having notes of different lengths. Okay, let's move on, particularly looking at this rhythm here. Now this is a little bit different because it's got a dot after it. And what the dot does is adds half the value again of the length of the note. So when it was just a quaver, our half beat note, it lasted for 2 of these boxes at the top, but because we're adding half the value again, it's going to last for 3 boxes instead of 2. And then the second B flat is just in 1 box because it's a semi-quaver. And that rhythm there, if I just change this to orange, it's got a special name. It's called a dotted rhythm. There we go. Okay, so let's carry on. Our A is half a beat, so it's 2 boxes. F is half a beat, so it's 2 boxes. And then we get to G. We've not had G before. We've not had this length before. And I've just drawn that wrong, because that's got an open circle with a stem on it, which is called a minim. That's 2 beats long. So if it's 2 beats long, imagine if it started here, it would cover 2 whole beats, or 4 half beats, or 8 quarter beats. So you can start to see how these note lengths are quite different to each other. Okay, now at the beginning of the next bar, then you've got that half beat rest, so we're going to leave the first 2 boxes blank, and then we'll move a little bit faster this time. It's helpful to draw on how long it lasts as well as where it starts. Now we've got this dotted rhythm again, so it lasts for 3, and then there's the one at the end. There we go. And then into the last bar. Now we've not had one of these before, so if that was a 1 beat note, we know the dot adds half the value, so that's going to be 1.5. Okay, so it would be 1 to there, but it's going to continue to be 1.5, or 6 quarters of a beat. Those are semiquavers, so they have their own boxes. Now then, this is something we've never had before. Have a look at this. When you have a note that has 3 tails, that's called a demi-semiquaver. And I actually haven't got enough individual boxes, so both of those notes are going to have to fit in the same box. So I might have to zoom in a little bit. And they both go in that one there. So they're very short notes. They're half the value of the Coca-Cola. And then there's the last one, which is the crotchet at the end. So going through there we go, we've analysed the rhythm. And the way to understand how to play that when you first begin, you may want to slow down and put a metronome on to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You might want to start to see if you can clap at on the right beat as you go through the pulse. But it is always very helpful when you have such a complicated rhythm as this is, to be able to slow it down and subdivide the beat, just as I have in the orange chart there. Okay, so that's the rhythm analysed. And then we're on to dynamics. So dynamics is how loud or soft the music is. And there's actually just 2 things to look at in here for dynamics. There's this, and there's this. And the F to begin with, just change my pen to red. The dynamics, the F is shorthand for an Italian word that's forte. And forte means loud. This is a very dramatic opening sequence of this film. It's almost like an arrival. It's like a triumphant arrival, like it's a fanfare. So something's being announced that something has arrived. And actually in the story of the film, it's where the helicopter first arrives, when the people arrive at Jurassic Park. And so this grand entrance has to be loud, and the composer's written the F there to help us to do that. Now, in the even just from that first bar of the melody, when there is this run at the top, it goes up to the top B flat. It also adds that extra little detail by having this shape. And this shape is called a hairpin. But it actually means crescendo, which is another Italian word. And crescendo means gradually getting louder. Now, during this period here, there's not very much time for something to gradually get louder, but you can still have a sense of a swell, which you can imagine a musician just leaning into the note a little bit more, just to push the dynamic, push the loudness up to the top where it can be. There's actually another symbol on that top B flat that we'll come to in articulation when we do that next. Okay, so that's the dynamics. There's no more indication within this 4-bar melody than that. So let's go into articulation. So articulation is green. So I'm just going to go through and highlight these are the extra little details that the composers use just to give the melody a sense of character. So there's something here that's a dot, and there's a line over the top of that. That's articulation. Then you've got this arrow, or it's like an arrow pointing to the right. Then you've got these lines here. And you've got another one of those lines and another one there. So there's quite a few little details within here for articulation. Let's change the pen colour to green. Let's explain what they mean. So this first one here with the dot, Italian word again, staccato. That means detached. And basically it just means play it shorter than the note value. So if I was to sing this without the dot, da 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 da, whereas with the dot, dun da dun da. So it has a really different feel to it, that detail. Now the other thing that I just sang was this one, which is tenuto. And tenuto, again, an Italian word. That's what the horizontal line means over the note. That means play for the full length. There we go. Okay, full length of the note. Now these things in here are called slurs. In fact, we'll just call it a slur, because they're all, collectively they will be slurs. But slurs, so there's another one here and one here and one here. They mean play those notes almost like they're connected together. So play them smoothly. Slightly different to the opposite of staccato is legato, where you would play the whole note, the whole melody smoothly together. But these are where notes, slurs are where notes almost merge into each other. Okay. And finally, there's not very much room up there now. So this, that area there, I'll just redraw it down here. And this is called an accent. And that means play that note more loudly than others around it. Okay, so that's articulation done. We didn't tick off dynamics, I'll do that now. There we go. And we're on to timbre. The timbre, or the sound, or the instrument that this melody is written for, the first instrument to play, is written here. And that is short for an instrument in the brass family, which is a trumpet. Go and watch some other YouTube clips of a trumpet if you've not seen one played before. Okay, so that's timbre. We've done timbre. And the last one is tempo. And the tempo of the music is marked here. Slightly different to where popular music might just be indicated by BPM, or beats per minute, because it's very specifically given as crotchet equals 85. So what that actually means is there are 85 crotchet beats in a minute. Okay, and that's the tempo done. So you can see there's quite a lot of detail there within the 4 bars of that melody. But the next thing we'll do is we'll get on and we'll play it or program it using your iPad so you can start to experience the melody.